The next day, I have a most horrendous car accident. The car is on a cliff, the Mediterranean a few hundred feet below. I come out with cracked ribs. I turned around to God and said, okay, next Shabbat, I'm with you. Relax. And now I'm standing in front of this man who is offering me the world on a platter, and I can't say yes. He says, Molly, what is the problem? I said, Mr. Dunkel, I'm sorry to tell you that I cannot accept your job offer because I observe the Sabbath. He looks at me like I've lost my mind.
Welcome to Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. I'm Chana Weisberg, host of this podcast. Joining me today, we have the extraordinary Molly Resnick. Thank you so much for joining us. Molly was previously has been a producer, a TV producer in Israel as well as in America, I believe on NBC television. And she has an incredible story, an incredible journey that she's going to be sharing with us today. Thank you so much for joining us, the extraordinary Molly.
Thank you, Mrs. Weisberg. It is such an honor to be here. So, I was born in Bulgaria and raised in Israel and decided to leave the land of milk and honey and come to the land of gold and money and seek my fortune. And I landed a job at NBC News and had
Wait, how old were you at this point?
I was 26 years old, and I
Did you know anyone in America? Like what made you come here?
well, I had been a merchandiser for American goods in Israel, and so I had a lot of connections to American people. But I had worked in Israeli television, and the people who I worked for knew the people who had started PBS, where I worked at first, and then from PBS, after I finished that show, I one of the people was in NBC, so he had me audition, which is a whole other incredible story. And I got the job at NBC as a producer of a daily interview segment called 5 Minutes With, and it was during the 70s and 80s, and that we were interviewing all the who's of the time. So whether it was Pele, the soccer player, or Muhammad Ali, the boxer, or Baryshnikov, the dancer, or Sophia Loren, the film star, or Edward Heath, the prime minister, or Dayan, or Begin, anybody who was anybody, we got him because there was the Today Show and my show. And who doesn't want a few minutes of free publicity? So my job was
it
very hard.
unusual? Was it unusual to get such a job? Like you just walked into the office to get, an interview,
It was so interesting that you're asking that because I got a job as a producer of very interesting events that would be at the end of the show. And then I had a car accident and I was stuck on a wheelchair and could not move. And they had pity on me. So they gave me a job where I couldn't run around the world and run it. I had to sit and really be steady. And that's how I got this job as a producer of this segment. The only thing I had to do was have to go to Broadway and to the opera and to the ballet every night to decide would we interview Mrs. Weisberg or would we interview Donald Trump? And I would always choose Mrs. Weisberg. Yes.
And how did you find these people to interview? Were they coming to you, or did you have to chase up to them?
When you are the king, don't forget, this was the time when we had 3 networks: NBC, ABC, and CBS. We didn't even have CNN when it started. That's how early this was, and so everybody was running to us. Pierre Cardin, anybody who was anybody wanted to see us. It was really
it's incredible that
yeah.
that you had that's a prestigious job that you just you landed an immigrant to America and you were able to get such a powerful position.
Amazing. And it was really, I would pinch myself to see if I was really alive or this was just a dream. It was really very empowering and extremely flattering to be the person who decides who will live and who will die on NBC News. And that was moi.
Wow. Did you feel great about yourself?
Actually not. It's so interesting. When you think you've got it all, that's why we always tell people, look at the big film stars in Hollywood and you think they've got it all. but they don't, because when you have, as the Rebbe would often say, he would say, when you have 100, you want 200. When you have 200, you want
Mm,
400. You're never satisfied because there's always a Bill Gates or a Donald Trump who's doing better than you, and you
mm,
want to be there. So,
mhm.
no, it was very ungratifying. And I didn't realize to what degree being a normal human being with a family and children is what grounds us. I was
Mm.
flying high, but I wasn't really based. And
So when you say you weren't fulfilled, were you not fulfilled because you wanted more in terms of your career,
no, because I
or is
didn't.
it because you wanted more meaning in life? What was it that you
It
were
was the
looking for?
meaning that was missing.
Meaning.
It was
Mm,
like living at a ping pong field. Every
mm,
moment you turn your. Today, if you're nursing, you're a saint. When I was nursing, what's wrong with you? There are bottles. Get a
mhm,
life. So
mhm,
it seemed like there was nothing eternal and steady that
mm.
was meaningful. And that, I think, was what the reason that I decided to take a leave of absence and to go and look for it.
Wow. And what that must have been a big decision to take a leave of absence from such a prestigious position.
Yes, but
How did they feel?
it was not risky because it was clear that when I would come back, I would get my job
Oh,
back. So it wasn't
mm,
that I was taking any risk. So
mhm.
I just said I'm going for a few months and I'll see what it's like.
Wow.
Um, so it's interesting because I started from Panama to Peru, Machu Picchu, the land of the Incas, and then from Machu Picchu to Rio de Janeiro. And in Rio, I was
What were you looking for? Like, what did
I
you
didn't
think you
know
were
what I
looking
was
for?
looking for. I had no
You were
idea what I was
just
looking for.
traveling to see
Just
meaning? Just
and don't forget, I had great connections. In Peru, I
mm.
was the guest of the president of the country because
Oh, wow.
I knew his son. It was a different kind of life. It was really living the high life. And to me, that was
Mhm,
normal because that's what I did for a living is
mhm,
interview famous people, meet with famous people. I used to go out with the editor of the New York Times and the editor of Newsweek would join us. It was normal life. You know what it's like. You're in that position in some way. Anytime you call somebody, oh, you want me on television? Oh,
mhm,
it's a very
mhm,
powerful position to be in, especially when you're at the NBC News.
mhm. Absolutely, right. So
So,
so you're traveling and you're looking for meaning, and where did you go?
and so for some reason, I don't want to go into it, it's too long. I needed to prove that I was Jewish. So I was looking for a Jewish connection, and there was a guy there who had his own island, his own plane, and was dating the illegitimate daughter of the Cardinal of Rio. I
Mm.
figured his rabbi would be the kind of rabbi I could handle. Because don't forget, I was the most secular Jew in the world. I was an American Israeli. I was a journalist. I was a feminist. I was an ethicist. I was a humanist. And I was Jewish. What's there to being Jewish? A few latkes and Hanukkah, a good Gregor, one of those things that you wave on Purim, and a few matzahs with a pita on Pesach because Passover, you're going to eat matzah for 8 days. It's total insanity. And for sure, I don't fast on Yom Kippur because that's for the religious Jews, and I am Israeli, so I don't need to fast. And
Mhm,
so
mhm.
I was living this life where it was
Is
complete.
that how you were brought up? Is that, like, what your family was like?
Yes, my
Okay.
family is Bulgarian, and it's interesting. Bulgarian Jews were one of the few peoples who were not persecuted during even the Nazi Holocaust. The
Mhm,
Danes and the Bulgarians, King Boris of
mhm,
Bulgaria, refused to allow his people to be deported. So interesting.
mhm,
So our house was mobilized by the Germans, and we were threatened that we would have to leave. But I was only 3 years old when we left Bulgaria. But I remember that that's the way that we were lucky. We didn't have to worry about it.
mhm.
So so there I
Sometimes when you're not
was.
persecuted, you don't really realize your like, how
Exactly,
much
exactly,
Judaism means.
exactly.
Right.
My grandfather, God rest his soul, did not fast on Yom Kippur. People have
Mm,
grandfathers, Lisa. My grandfather once saw me walking with a man with a yarmulke, a kippah on his head, and he said, "What could you possibly have to speak to with this
mm,
backward person?" Because in my
interesting.
grandfather's eyes, people who wore these head coverings were absolutely backward, not educated.
Wow.
For us,
Wow.
education was everything.
Hmm.
I was
Interesting.
taught to ride, I was taught to play tennis, I was taught needlework, I was taught painting, watercolors, and oils. I had to be the kind of princess that could marry a Prince Charles. But Judaism, what do you need that for? It's a
Mm-hmm.
backward religion. We are liberated. This was
Hmm.
so, when I think back, how unfortunate you can be so happy thinking you've got it all and you've got absolutely nothing.
That's the biggest exile, right?
The greatest exile of all, really is.
Mm,
But
right. Okay, so you're in Rio? Is
so
that
I'm in
where
Rio de
you're looking for
Janeiro, and I
looking for a rabbi?
right, and I find this rabbi, and I don't check him out, and I call him up, and he invites me to Friday night dinner. So I said, "Thank you, how nice." I come to dinner, I knock on the door, and there is this man in a black hat, the beard, the black, what do they call capota in English? I don't know. This robe, and books in the back. And I said, "Oh my God, it's the black ones. How do I get out of here?" In comes the wife with this thing on her head, and she says, "Shabbat shalom." Good Shabbos. Hidlakt nerot. You lit candles? For me, this is either Fiddler on the Roof or voodoo. I don't gesticulate and I don't mumble when I pray. I'm a cardiac Jew.
Right.
I said, "No. Rotzale hadlik. You want a light?" I said, "If it doesn't burn the hands, I'll light." I get my nerot. I do my little voodoo. And I say my bracha. I'm Israeli. I know these things. And in walks this elegant looking Hannah Weisberg because she was beautiful like you. She's wearing the Gucci and the Pucci and the Bali and the Mali. And I said, "Who is this young lady?" "This is our daughter, Hanala." "But she
Mm,
looks totally normal. What are you
mm,
doing with them?" "I'm getting married to a Chassid of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. You want to see a picture?" I said, "Of course." She brings me a picture. I look at it and I say, "How can you tell them apart? They all look the same. You're going to be cooking chicken soup for the rest of your life. You're going to be pregnant every year. Let me help you run away. You don't have to live like this. You can be a normal person like me." By this time, I'm 33.
mm,
She is 20. And I am totally taken by this girl. She's intelligent.
mm.
She is, I don't know, should we say that she's your daughter-in-law? She's married to your daughter. Not she. I'm sorry. Her son is married to your daughter. It's such a
Absolutely.
special treat, and
Absolutely.
unfortunately, she just passed away a few months
Mhm.
ago, and it's really very sad. And we really should dedicate all the good that comes to her neshama, to
Goodness
her
to her.
soul. Yes,
Absolutely.
Chana
Yes.
Bat Yerachmiel. Yes.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Thank you.
so where
Yes.
was I? Yes. I was,
So this
where was,
beautiful woman is showing you her
oh,
beautiful
she's
her
showing
husband,
me that,
her
and I'm telling her, "Listen, you really don't have to live this way. Come with me," and so on and so forth. And she is just brilliant and just enticing. And she says to me, "No, no." So I say to her, "I've got to see you again. I've got to see you again." She said, "Sure, you'll come to shul with me tomorrow." I said, "To where?" She said, "Synagogue." I said, "Listen, I am very liberal. Synagogue, ashram, mosque, church, all the same to me. I will join you." Next day, I take my car from the Copacabana Palace Hotel that I'm staying in Rio, and I go to shul, to synagogue, and I see pam, 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 pam. You do that with your feet, the Jewish cha-cha-cha. I had
right.
never seen Shmoneh Esrei. I had never seen the prayer that we say 3 times a day when we approach God in reverence, steps backwards, 3 steps forward. I had never seen it. And I want to tell you something very interesting. I married the Rebbe's doctor, so we can get to it in the future.
Absolutely.
But I met the Rebbe, and the first time I met him, I said to him, "Rebbe, aren't you embarrassed to dance before you pray?" Can you imagine? And the Rebbe gave me a smile from here to eternity. Just so beautiful. He understood who is this brilliant, not so brilliant person who is standing there and thinking he's dancing before he prays.
Right.
So,
For those who are listening who don't know, in the Amidah prayer, the final prayer that we pray, which is the holiest prayer, we take 3 steps back and 3 steps forward as we approach God with our prayers in humility. Yes. So it looks like a little cha cha cha.
right, exactly.
Right. Right. Wow.
So here I was.
So,
Yeah,
I'm just curious. I mean, Chana was a beautiful woman. This woman that you met, Chana Blumenfeld. But you met beautiful people, career people, smart people, intelligent people in the career world. I mean, you were meeting the top of the top. What was it that attracted you to this 20-something-year-old woman?
such a brilliant question. Honestly, there was something about the naivete, the simplicity, the holiness of a holy person who is not contaminated by the outside world, which she wasn't, and a lot of our
Mhm.
girls are not. That is so enticing and so drawing.
Mhm.
She was very smart, like you said, and she knew a lot of Torah, and she knew a lot of good things to say, but she was pure. It's this
Mhm.
purity that I just was drawn to, that I had never met before. Yes, all these people, da 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 da, but there was something about her that just drew me to her, and I had to get more of her.
Now, I know you're someone that challenges people. Did you challenge her?
Oh my gosh, I kicked and screamed all the way to the bank. It was like, what
Right.
do you mean this and what do you mean that and who needs that and who needs this? And she was unbelievable. She's so
Mm,
steadfast. She was so determined. She raised the
mhm.
most incredible family. She has three
She
boys and
did.
one girl who are
Yeah.
stupendous. The most magical thing of this whole thing is her son is the teacher of my grandchildren. Look how
Really?
God has made it all come around that I should have the merit to have my grandchildren taught by her son in
Wow.
Detroit.
Wait, in Detroit. Oh,
Wow.
wow.
This is
Smokline's
like
older
later, but
brother.
can
How
you
beautiful.
imagine that Hashem arranged this?
Wow,
It's
that's
so
incredible.
stupendous, amazing. God really runs the world, but I didn't know it then. It took me a while
Mhm,
to find out. You are so lucky not to have had to go through this.
mhm. So, okay, so you met her, and I guess you didn't change overnight, or did you?
So I said to her, I want to see you again. And she said, sure, I'll come take you. She comes in a car to my hotel. I said, they let you drive? They're not afraid you're going to run away? All the ideology of secular people, I had it in triplicate. If they're religious, they're obviously tied and they're strung up. And of
Mhm,
course, they can't go where they want. They must be total prisoners of their environment.
mm, mm,
And she took me to the botanical garden in Rio. And it's really was voted one of the seven most wonderfully beautiful places in the world. And I'm arguing with her. What do you mean, chosen people? And what about the rest of the world? They're peanuts. And what is this nonsense? And suddenly it dawns on me. The real reason I came to America was because, as a graduate of political science from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, I was enamored of the American Constitution. I used to walk with
mhm,
the Constitution in one pocket and the Bill of Rights of the French in the other. It was my raison d'etre. And I came here
mm,
during Watergate, a time when any other country would have probably collapsed. But here I
mm,
was, and I was totally taken by it. And I suddenly am standing in the botanical garden in Rio, and I said to myself, you're impressed by the American Constitution? And what do you know about your Constitution? Your
mhm,
Torah. And I suddenly got it. God, you exist. You
mhm,
created the world. You chose the Jewish people as your representatives. And I am one of them. And I don't know anything about you. I speak eight languages, not perfectly, but I would never dream of not reading something in the original. So if it's Moliere, it's in French. And if it's Dante Alighieri, Italian. And if it's Hegel, it's German. And if it's Dostoevsky, it's Russian. I even learned Sanskrit so I should be able to understand the Bhagavad Gita of the Hindus in the original. But give me a Rashi, give me a Rambam. I don't know anything. I was the one who translated Begin's speech in the 70s when Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt, came and wanted to make peace with the Jewish people. At NBC
Wow.
News in New York, we're looking for translators. Tom Brokaw, the anchorman, says, "We can't find anyone. Let's take Molly." They take me, put me next to Henry Kissinger in 30 Rockefeller Plaza studio, and I am translating Begin from Hebrew into English. The first
Wow.
ever simultaneous translation done by this young lady. And I'm doing a
Mhm.
pretty good job. But Begin, who was not a religious Jew, but he was a very hot Israeli neshama, a soul, and he always used to quote the Psalms or the Torah. And when he quoted the Psalms and the Torah, this young lady was absolutely dumb because she didn't
Mhm.
understand a word he was saying. And I'm
Mhm.
standing there and I'm saying, "Oh my God, you exist. You really created the world. You
Did
create,
you believe in God before then?
no, you really
No.
exist. You created the world. And I am going to give you a present for all the things you have done for me without heartache, without tragedy, without sickness."
Mm.
And I gave up 5 things: pork, shrimp, lobster, champagne, and caviar. Why champagne
Mm.
and caviar? It doesn't matter. And I'm going to light candles because it was through the candles that my eyes were open.
Hmm. Wow.
And that
Wow.
was the ba-bum. And from there on, I started to learn and to discover who I am and where I come from and what I need to make up in my life to be the person I'm supposed to be, a God fearing Jew who believes that the Jewish people are the ambassadors of holiness to the world, who believes that we have civilized the world. Christianity is nothing but Judaism and paganism. Islam
Mm.
is nothing but craziness in Judaism.
Mm.
And we have civilized the entire Western world. And we're 1% of 1%. And we don't realize it. We are royalty. We are the
Mm.
royalty of the world. You're a queen. I'm a princess because I'm, and this is what
Mm.
it's about. And this is how we have to live. And I didn't know it. And suddenly the world was open to me. I
It's
started to learn.
amazing.
I started to, I'm a diver. So I jumped and I was swimming like an Olympic swimmer. And it was unbelievable. And
I
then I,
I find it so fascinating how one girl and one mitzvah just opens your eyes to a whole new world.
yes, yes, yes. And the
It's really
Rebbe always
incredible.
told us, if you know an Aleph, teach an Aleph. You don't have to know
Mm.
more than that. Your Aleph can save somebody else's life. She had a lot more than an Aleph, but it's true. She met me and
Mhm.
she changed my life. I always told her, Hannah, you think you were brought in this world to raise a family. You were brought in this world to save me and bring me home.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's true. She
Wow.
was always in touch with all my family. She was amazing, very
Incredible.
special. I was so
So
blessed.
so how did you dive in? Like, what did you do? You started learning? What did you
Yes, I
what
immediately started learning. I immediately started doing things. I immediately threw away my non-kosher dishes. Threw away my non-kosher clothes. I was diving.
was it hard? Was it a struggle?
It was a very exciting experience. New clothes, new dishes, new everything. It was very special. And
Did you ever question along your way?
no, I never questioned. I just argued and kicked and screamed because I knew it was true. But if I'm not getting it, it's because it's hard for me, but I'll get it eventually. But I argued. I gave everywhere I went because I was still in, I would go and ask, who's the smartest Jew in your city? And when
Mm.
I'd go, I'm calling Molly Resnick City. I'm honestly from NBC News, and I would like to come and talk to you. And of course, oh, NBC News, please come in. So I was welcomed everywhere, and it was really very easy. But then I realized that the most exciting, intelligent people that I was meeting were all Lubavitchers. I said, what if I get stuck with Lubavitch? What's them? They've got the lease on life. I don't want them. I'm going to go and try everything. And I did. But I always ended up finding that the Lubavitchers were the most intriguing, the most intelligent. And then I started learning from the Rebbe, and it was changed my whole life. I was a pro-Palestinian. I helped the
Mm.
Palestinians. And the Rebbe changed my worldview. To change your worldview from supporting Palestinians to understanding that God gave the Jewish people a land that's theirs, and it's not
What
questioned. It's not a
what
question. Sorry.
What was there any like specific teaching that really inspired you that really made you feel like, wow, this is like so amazing. This is so different than what I've been exposed to.
Yes.
And specifically in Chabad, because you said that's where you felt the strongest pull and the strongest, inclination towards.
Yes, it was when I found out about the mikveh. I
Mm,
was blown away. I was living at a time where there was a liberation and everybody was, oh, you don't have to have a husband. You can have a hot dog on the side. Da, 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 da. And I heard about this ideology that you marry and you separate for 2 weeks according to your feminine cycle, and then you reacquaint yourself with your husband. And I said, this
so
is
you
brilliant.
you only
Physically,
separate physically.
physically,
You
right?
don't move
Correct.
out, right?
Yeah, you don't move out.
Yeah.
And I was totally. I said, this is brilliant.
Mhm,
Only a supernatural God could
mhm,
invent such a thing. And when you learn
mhm,
the laws, it's even more brilliant. And I thought it
mhm.
was the most wonderful thing. My husband would come and say, are you available to go with me to Sicily on the 20th of February? No, I'm sorry, I'm not. My cycle wouldn't allow it. He would change his meeting so I could go with him. We run the world, we Jewish women, but people don't know it. The world
Mhm.
is run by the Jewish women. You know that, Hannah, of course, right?
Of course. What's the question? So I'm assuming you didn't go back to NBC
Of course, I went
after
back
that?
to NBC. I was at
You did go
NBC
back
for 13 years. Five
13 years,
before I was
right?
I was
And did
acquainted
it
with the creator of the world. And 8 years later, I had my two boys at NBC. And I didn't
did
want
it
to leave NBC, but the Rebbe kept me there.
interesting.
Yes.
Why did the Rebbe keep you there? He
I
felt
think
that
the
you were
Rebbe
needed there?
was, they say, we all know he's a tzaddik. I don't know so much about a tzaddik, but he was a merchandising genius.
Mm,
Totally a
right.
merchandising genius. Took one person at a time and filled the world with close to 6,000 emissaries. In every country, there's a Jewish emperor who runs the world. People don't know it. Apple, Google, forget that. We run the world. And I don't care what anybody says, it's the truth. And the Rebbe, in his genius, one by one, created this network that is always there. What would have happened to me if I had gone to Brazil and been found by one of the macumbas, cha-cha-chas, whatever? I was found by a Jew and brought home. My
Right.
children, I have two children who are both emissaries. And I'm an only child and they have
Amazing children.
amazing,
Beautiful
my
children.
children, of
Yeah.
course. And
Yeah.
and they
Beautiful.
and they and they and they are followers of the Rebbe. The Rebbe absolutely was the most impressive Jewish leader that I think ever existed. I'm not putting down anybody else, but the genius of this man to create the network that he has done in the world is ununderstandable.
Hmm,
It's beyond.
beautiful.
Look at you. Did you go to university? No. Did you go to do anything? No. And look at you. You're a beautiful, intelligent, educated
Molly, this is
broadcaster.
about you.
I
This is
know,
about
but
you.
but look at you. Look what the Rebbe did
Right.
with
Right.
you.
Right.
It's
I'm
amazing.
curious. I'm
But
quite
he did it
curious.
with every
Thank you.
single
Thank you.
person.
Yeah, 100%. I'm curious though, like, how was it as a religious Jewish woman working at NBC? Did you find any conflict? Was there
Well,
any
it's
problem?
interesting, yes, because they were very supportive. It was very
Mm,
interesting. There was once a hostage situation, not political, but in New York City. And
hmm.
the head of NBC called and said, make sure Molly's not held up because she has to keep her Sabbath. It's
Really?
so
Wow.
beautiful. They were very respectful, very
Mm,
respectful. It was wonderful to see that. And I was able to work on Sundays and Fridays and take Shabbat off. But as my children were growing, it
hmm.
was difficult because they're off on Shabbat and they're with a babysitter and my husband. So that's what I wanted to leave. But the Rebbe always insisted, now stay, stay, stay. I ran
Stay.
away when the Rebbe wasn't looking, if that could be a thing that I could say.
Wow. Well,
Really.
you mentioned your children and your husband. Tell us a little about your husband, how you met him.
Okay. So when I came back, I went to Hannah Blumenfeld's wedding.
Ah.
And it was the most disgusting thing I had ever gone to. A religious Jewish wedding. It was Horrible. I had to dance with women and men were dancing with men. Oi! But then I got into it and I loved it. And it was so exciting. Dancing and not having to worry. Is he looking at me? Is he not looking at me? Suddenly, out of the blue, a woman comes to a younger woman and says, "Soon by you." And the girl says, "Thank you very much." I said,
Mm.
"Is she crazy? She's admitting that she wants to get married? Oh my gosh. Doesn't she know about feminism? We don't need to get married. I'm a producer. I, uh, I have a laboratory I can use. It's not necessary." And another woman comes and says, "Mazel tov to another. Should be a mazel tov for you." And I said, "Oh my God, who's crazy here?" These
Mm.
religious girls, they get born, they go to school, they get their hormones, they get married, and then they go for a career. What are you? You're 33, you're dying to get married. You can't move without thinking about it. I am a producer of NBC News. I don't need to get married. I'm fine. I don't need anything. Blah, 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 blah,
Mm.
blah.
So you weren't interested in marriage. It wasn't
And
part of your
then
plan.
suddenly it dawned on me. They are smart and you are stupid. And the
Mm.
next day I announced I am never going out except for a shidduch. I want a match. I want to be matched up with somebody who wants to get married. Doesn't have to want to marry me, but it's got to have marriage on his mind. My
Mm.
first shidduch, my first meeting was my husband. I fell in love with him on the phone. He was a doctor from Harvard and a doctor of the Rebbe. I covered both my bases and satisfied everyone. Is that amazing? Is that
That is very
amazing?
amazing. Yes.
This is what I tell people. When you jump for God, He jumps for you. You
Wow.
gave up Shabbat and said, "I'm not going to work," and He jumped for you. Oh, maybe I didn't tell you that part of the story yet.
Tell us. Tell us.
So everybody asked me when I came back, "What did you find on your trip? How was it?" I said, "It was interesting, it was scintillating, it was amusing." And I didn't know, what am I going to tell them? I found God? It's
Right.
embarrassing. So suddenly, out of the blue, enters Mr. Don Dunkel, Vice President, NBC News. "Welcome back, Molly. How was your trip?" Oh my God, I have to answer that question again. "It was wonderful, Mr. Dunkel." I said, "Wonderful? I'll tell you what's wonderful. We got the contract to cover the Olympics of 1980, and you have been
Mm.
chosen to run human interest story videos on each of the contestants. That is wonderful." And I'm
Mm.
standing there and I can't open my mouth. He says, "Molly, did you hear what I said? It's a lot of money." "Oh, you've never done Olympics. Going to send you to Lake Placid Winter Olympics. You'll become a specialist." Can't open my mouth. What happened? 3 weeks before, I took the Concorde, that inimitable plane that faster than the speed of sound, went to France, covered the film festival, the Cannes Film Festival, checked into my hotel, ordered wine because I don't drink champagne anymore. Remember, I did my
Right.
voodoo thing. And the next day, I
Right.
have a most horrendous car accident. The car is on a cliff, the Mediterranean a few hundred feet below. I come out with cracked ribs. I turned around to God and said, "Okay, next Shabbat, I'm with you. Relax." And now I'm
Mm.
standing in front of this man who is offering me the world on a platter, and I can't say yes. He says, "Molly, what is the problem?" I said, "Mr. Duncan, I'm sorry to tell you that I cannot accept your job offer because I observe the Sabbath."
Mm.
He looks at me like I've lost my mind. "Molly, somebody smart like you is going in for institutionalized religion?" I said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Dunkel. I gave my word and I will not renege." He says, "Hey, baby, it's your life." And
How did you feel?
I
How
left
did
the
you
room,
feel?
exactly, good question, feeling like a schmata, like a rag, or that if I had gone through my own binding of Isaac, Akedas Yitzchak, I have passed
Mm.
my test. Where did I get the courage to say yes to such a job offer, to say no to such a job offer? It was this
Yes.
young lady, this Arhana, who had fortified me, given me books to read, and I came across something that left an indelible impression on my mind. I'll say it in Hebrew and I'll translate. Sof davar hakol nishma et haelokim yira et mitzvotav shemor ki ze kol ha'adam. This was said by
Mm.
none other than the wisest richest man in the world, man who could communicate with animals and plants, who built our holy temple, King Solomon. And how does he sum up his life? When all is said and done, when you've heard it all, God you should fear, his commandments you should keep, because that is the sum of man. That
Mm.
man, the greatest, richest, sums up his life. Without God, you are nothing. And I said, I'm going to take it up. And I don't know if you know what happened to the Olympics of 1980. President
Mm.
Carter, in response to the USSR attacking Afghanistan, boycotted the Olympics of 1980.
Mm.
Not one American foot set foot in Moscow. When there are no Americans competing, Americans don't like to watch. And where are no
Right.
Americans watching, NBC doesn't cover. NBC canceled the Olympics of 1980. As Jews, we are
Uh-uh.
taught to lead our lives in a dichotomous manner. On the one hand, I'm nothing but ashes and dust. Afar va'efer. On the other hand, "B'shvili nivra ha'olam kulo." For me alone, for you alone, for each one of us, Hashem created the world just for us. And so,
Mm.
as I say when I speak, the reason God canceled the Olympics of 1980 is because of moi.
Right.
Do you have any doubts?
100%.
Do you have any
No,
doubts?
no,
No, nobody will have
not at
any
all.
doubts either because it's absolutely true. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Can you
Wow.
imagine what God did for one act of diving into the sea?
Wow.
I
Did
always
you
thought
see it then? Did you see it at the time? Did you realize?
it's a good question. I never thought about it. I've I've
Mm.
I've been telling this story for 46 years.
Mm.
46 years. The Rebbe absolutely insisted that I share my story, that I tell it. My husband wasn't very happy about it. But the Rebbe insisted. I used to tell my husband, "Why don't you go argue with the Rebbe?"
The rebel your husband wasn't happy that what? That you were
That I
giving
was
up this
sharing my
opportunity?
story. He says,
Oh, that you were
I
sharing
don't
your
think that
story.
it's exactly
Mm.
appropriate for you to tell your previous life's, whatever you want to say it. So,
Right.
but the Rebbe insisted, insisted, and insisted. There are so many videos. When are you speaking again? What did you speak about? He once had me repeat an entire speech I made in France, in Nice or Cannes with Mrs. Pinson. We had to sit together and repeat it to him in French and write it down.
Really?
Yeah, it was so
Wow.
special. We were so blessed. And
How did you get this connection with the Rebbe? Like, when did it start? Tell us a little about that.
well, I think the real connection came through my husband. He was the Rebbe's doctor. And the Rebbe, I was told by his assistant, Rabbi Klein, the Rebbe loved my husband. Well, he loved everybody,
Mm.
but, and so he,
When did he become his doctor?
became his doctor way before he met me, 1977, when the Rebbe had his first heart attack. My husband was on a visit from Hawaii, where he was an army doctor. He had been a recruit of the army, he was a doctor in Hawaii, and he came here, and the Rebbe had had his heart attack 2 weeks before, and the doctor who was taking care of him, Dr. Weiss, had to leave because he had a
Mhm.
practice. So they asked my husband if he would take over. And my husband said, "Listen, I would love to, but I'm an army doctor." So they got everybody, Lubavitch. Nothing is impossible for Lubavitch. They got everybody, Hubert Humphrey, this one, that one, Shem Tov, going around. And suddenly my husband is in the office and the yellow phone rings. Can we speak to Dr. Resnick? Gets on the phone. This is the office of the chief of staff of the president of the United States, Hamilton Jordan, I think. And we would like to know why we should transfer an American Army doctor to take care of this religious leader. And my husband said the smartest thing he ever said in his life. For the Jewish people, lahavdil, difference, this man is like the Pope. If the
Mm.
American army had been asked to take care of the Pope, you would have been very proud, had a press conference, and gotten everybody to know about it. For
Mm.
this, for the Jewish people, this man is that. So you should be very proud.
Mm.
And they transferred him
Wow.
from
Oh, wow.
Hawaii to Fort Hamilton and then to 770. And that's how. And I met him 2 years later. So I never went through
Incredible.
that whole thing.
Right.
We had a shidduch in 1979. That's when I
Right.
met him, and
So your husband had a lot of contact with the Rebbe
oh
as his
yes,
personal
from
doctor.
the beginning till the closing of the eyes of the Rebbe, he was there.
Wow.
So we were very, very privileged. It was a very special thing. The Rebbe made Sheva Brachas for us, which is the seven blessings that we do on different days, which I had never known about. But he had his
After a
inauguration
wedding
party,
celebration.
and
Mhm.
it was there. Actually, Rabbi Soloveitchik was also visiting. So I'm the only person who had the Rebbe of Chabad with the head of the Misnagdish, the other side, uh, at my wedding. So very privileged.
Wow. Incredible.
Very,
Incredible.
very special. Very special. But you
Did
tell you know,
you
yeah, go ahead.
did you merit to have any audiences with the Rebbe because of your connections?
I had two personal individual audiences, and the most interesting one was when I asked the person I was going out with, my husband to be, tell the Rebbe that I want to interview him. My husband was very gentle, and he said, I'll ask. He came back. I said, what did the Rebbe say? He said, the Rebbe said that he hopes that he can wish me Mazel Tov next time he sees me, that he can
Ah,
congratulate me on our getting engaged. I said, getting engaged for you, but not for me. I wrote the Rebbe a letter, and the Rebbe answered in the following. Going to translate. She's correct in writing that each side deserves their own answer. Let her
mm,
contact the secretariat about her desire to see me face to face about the correct time, and I will mention it on my father-in-law's grave. Now I am
wow.
going to meet the Rebbe, and I
Wow.
dress exemplary. Navy blue gabardine suit, yellow silk canary blouse, pearls, patent leather Ferragamo shoes, voice activated tape recorder inside my lizard handbag. And I walk into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe looks at me and says, do you always dress like this? I said, what's wrong with what I'm wearing? He says, now you came to see me. I want to be reassured that you will always look like this. From the moment he met me, my mentor, Rivka Kotlarski, told me, he gave you a mission. He gave
So
you a
what do you
mission.
think he
The
meant by
mission
that?
is to look like a princess, to look like a queen.
Mm,
We are the royalty of the Jewish family. There is nothing like the Jewish woman. We run the world. And he made sure that I knew about it. And that's what I do. I always dress elegantly, conservatively, and I always try to represent myself as a princess because we
mm,
are the real royalty. There
mhm,
is no royalty without a king, and our king is God the Creator. And unless you realize that there is a ruler to this planet and there is a way that he wants us to live, everything you can come up with is insane. People want to
mm,
be furries. They want to be a man when they're a woman. We've gone to the point that we have lost sorry, all sense of what is right and what is wrong. It's how I feel. I don't
mm,
feel this way. Who cares how you feel? God created you and made you a servant of the Almighty Creator. And you're here for one reason only, to do a good job. That's it.
mm,
And everything
mm,
else is secondary. And a lot of people have lost it. Even religious people are losing it. I don't know. I
mm,
want to go to a therapist. The greatest
mm,
therapists are the Torah scholars who have godly wisdom to guide us with. I am
mm.
such an anti psychology, anti therapist person that you, if you knew it, would not have even accepted me here because there's no truth to any of it.
Right.
The truth is that everything is in the Torah. It's been around for 3,500 years almost, and it's got everything.
It's amazing how one little spark, you know, just completely awakened so much passion in you and so much
Thank,
fire in you.
thank
It's
you.
really
I,
incredible.
I fell in love with God, and I am totally enamored by everything that happens. I look at the news differently. I look at the world differently. It's all, what is God trying to do? Why did he put Trump in? This guy is an amazing maniac, but look what he's doing for Israel. Do you understand it? No, but it says what
So I want
kings
to ask
do, God wants them to do. So I don't know why.
absolutely.
It's
Right.
if you look at the world this way, it's a whole different world. It's so
So
differently
I
how you
want to
watch the news.
I want to
Sorry.
speak more about that in a minute, but I want to hear first also, I understand that did you ever see the Rebbitzin, the
I
Rebbe's
did.
wife?
As a matter of fact, I visited the Rebbitzin a few months before she passed away. I took my two boys into the house.
Wow.
She's such a
How old were
regal,
they at the time?
so I don't know how to calculate, but they were maybe 7 and 5,
Mhm.
something like
And
that.
why were you invited into her home?
I called her up and told her I want to see her.
Well,
I avoided her. It was very strange. I I was very intimidated by her regal demeanor. She's
mm,
much more like you. You know, you're very sophisticated,
mm.
elegantly. I'm much more diddle, 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 more like her sister. And I was very friendly with her sister. But
I can't see you intimidated by people.
yeah, it's interesting. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I
Okay.
avoided her really. But then I said, how am I avoiding the queen? So I called her up and said, I would really like to come and see you. It was Sukkot. And I
Wow.
came, and she had a dog that was guarding the place, and she was so regal and treated us in the most. And then she said the most amazing thing. She said, my husband will never be able to help to appreciate, to thank your husband for everything he has done for him. My
Mm.
husband, your husband,
Wow.
what are we, friends? And then the
Wow.
next day, I went to the Rebbe. It was Lekach time when the Rebbe gives a piece of honey during the holiday of
Honey
Sukkot.
cake.
Honey cake,
Mhm.
right? Thank you. And the Rebbe said, "Thank you so much for visiting the Rebbetzin. She was
Mhm.
so taken by your visit and liked you so much. Here I am visiting the queen, visiting the king, and noblesse oblige. They treat you like you are the royalty and not them. And it's something to learn. They were so amazing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah, very special. I was blessed and blessed and blessed. And I thank God every day that I have the opportunity to share what I learned, what was missing from my life with anybody. I speak all over. Sorry,
I understand that you said that the Rebbe encouraged you to keep speaking, to tell
everywhere.
your story.
Yes, and
Really.
I speak in French for the French and in Spanish for the Spanish and
I
in
think at
Hebrew
one
for the
point
Hebrew.
he even paid for part of your ticket
It
because
that
the your
Yeah,
tell us
what
about
happened
that.
was that was really an amazing story. My husband was invited to speak in England, so I was going to go with him. I always traveled with him, and I notified the emissaries in England that I was coming. Would they want to use me? And they said yes. Suddenly, the Gulf War starts, and my husband's trip is canceled. So my husband said, "I'm sorry, we're not going." I said, "Who's not going?" I said, "He said we're not going." I said, "I already committed to speak." He says, "Who's going to pay
Mhm.
for your trip?" I said, "You're worried about money? You never care. Use your checks as bookmarks." I said, "I'm writing the Rebbe." I wrote the Rebbe a letter, and the Rebbe answered. I won't take away the privilege completely, but I will pay for your ticket except 10%. I went to my
Mm.
husband. My husband said, I don't think that's appropriate." I said, "Why don't you go talk to the Rebbe?" I went to England. The ticket was $300, the cheapest ticket ever. I went to Rabbi Chodakov, brought the ticket plus the $30 for the taxi, and got 90% of it. Can you imagine?
Mm. Wow. I
So
guess the Rebbe felt
special,
it was so important what you were
so
doing.
important, so important. I was so
Wow.
blessed, so blessed.
Well, how did you raise
Holy
your
Torah. Totally like me. My children are replicas of me. Do you know my son is a shaliach, he's an emissary, and the Rebbe didn't want us to say, but he's got a lot of children. I'm an only child, and he's in
Yeah.
California. He has a cheder. He has a school for children who learn separately, boys and girls. 130 kids. Can you
Wow.
believe it? Zvi Freeman's son has become the principal. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
My daughter is an emissary in the biggest jungle in the world, Manhattan, and she has
Wow.
running Hebrew school. She's become a Hebrew school expert, and she's also got a lot of children. Baruch Hashem, and these are my children, and I'm so
Did you
blessed. My two, and then I have one
did
who's not a
did you
Lubavitcher, but he was the
Okay.
editor of the Jewish Press, and he's got a PhD in Jewish history, and he's an
Amazing.
amazing son, and he organized everything that I'm doing, and I am so blessed that
Did
they all believe that the Torah and the wisdom of the Torah is the only thing we need in life. Nothing else. Nothing else. In medicine, yes. In geology, yes. In architecture, yes. But when you come to a Jewish soul, the only hand that can touch a Jewish soul is another Jewish soul. Nobody else can advise us. Not about marriage, not about behavior. We are it. We have brought the it to the world, and we have to
And
remember it
and
with a
I'm
Jewish
curious
wisdom.
about 100%. I'm just wondering, did you find, like, it hard to navigate because it was such a new world for you? You know, it was such a uncharted course. You didn't grow up with that. Your parents didn't have that. Your
But I
grandparents
didn't
didn't have
grow
it.
up with kosher. I didn't grow up
Right.
with family purity. I didn't grow up with anything. So to me, everything, I said, God had it ready from before. So whenever I find out a new thing, tell me all about it. I got to get in
Mhm,
because there was no
mhm,
doubt in my mind that it was right. I just
mm,
had to. How do I implement it? I
right.
remember that the I don't know the kids were watching television, only Sesame Street or Mister Rogers, nothing serious. Then I went to a conference and they said television. The Rebbe says it's very
Mhm.
very not proper for kids to watch it. I came home and I said, "Okay, kids, we're not watching television anymore." The kids went, "What? Ma, please don't go to conferences." I said, "I'm going to conferences because I am learning what God wants me to do. So we're not going to watch television." Can you imagine? I took it away, but I compensated. I
Mm.
took them somewhere. I did things from them. I gave a lot of presents. It's the thing.
So it wasn't only the no, it was also
That's
what
what
you
it
brought
says
in
in the
as well.
Torah.
Yeah,
The right hand
100%.
draws near and the left hand repels. Both. It's like a bird. You need to
Right,
fly with two wings. If you don't
right,
have one wing, the bird flies wrong. And that's
right.
today we are missing the part that is the strength, the
Mhm,
demand of discipline, the
mhm,
the the appropriate behavior to parents, the appropriate behavior to teachers. When the Rebbe was asked why he called the children's organization the Army of Hashem, it was during the Vietnam era when it was army. Oh my gosh, we're against armies. The Rebbe said God calls us Tzivot Hashem, the army of
mm,
God. We are an army because today there's no respect for teachers, parents, police, or
mhm,
judges. We need to
mm,
establish that in our children. Give them prizes. Let them want to serve the Almighty. He made everything into an exciting mission. We're soldiers, but that's what it's about. We are soldiers of God. And a soldier,
mm,
he says, "Babala Muchkala, how are you? How do you feel?
mm.
Did you make your
Right.
bed? Did you polish your shoes? How are you talking to me?" That's what's
I
missing.
I hear you. I wanna ask you one more thing about your husband. I know he passed away very young. Tell us a little
21
about that.
years ago.
21 years ago. And
It's
how
amazing. He
old was
was
he at the time?
55 years old and he had a pip, in Judaism, again, it's so brilliant. We don't call a thing by its name. He had that disease. Don't
Mm,
even put it in your mouth. How did the Rebbe call a hospital? A house of healing. So
mm,
smart. How did he call? Do we call a toilet? The house of the seat. Judaism
mhm,
is so brilliant, even controlling our minutest words, because in Hebrew, davar, thing, is dibur, is speech. Hashem created the world with speech, so
right.
everything we say makes a difference. So Judaism is the most exciting thing that ever existed in the world. We are so blessed. I'm often wondering why the Pope hasn't seen it yet, but he will. But anyway, my husband
S
was an amazing guy. He was brilliant, and he was 21
What
when he was a doctor.
was he on the same page with you in terms of raising your
Totally,
children?
totally,
Mhm,
totally. Came from a family that believed in proper decorum, behavior. There's no allowing children to do what they want. My grandchildren come to the house. Where are we? We're in the house of Sapta, which is Hebrew for grandma. And are we allowed to touch anything without permission? No. I set rules. And I give them
No,
ice
I mean,
cream
though,
and
was he
chocolate and presents.
right.
Yemin
What
mekarevet small docha.
right. Was he on the same like, was he as excited about Yiddishkeit, about
No, of
Judaism as
course
you
not. He
were?
was born with it like you. You were also not as excited as me. Even you say, nobody's as excited as me. I discovered godliness. It's my wow.
When your husband passed away, what was it like to you? How did you deal with that? I
Again,
mean,
it
was it s
was it was Judaism who was it was very, very helpful to me because my daughter was 16 and she was still in high school and she was being mollycoddled. How are you? And she was raised by me, so she didn't like it. So I went and I said, listen, my kids have gone through a hard time anyway. They don't need your pity. They need your strength. Help them get the schoolwork that they missed, but don't pity them. They are not
Mm.
victims. We don't know why this happened to us. We don't understand anything, but we are going to continue a Chaiten el Libo, what the Rebbe says. The living shall take to heart. We're going to grow. We're going to do what the Rebbe taught us. We're going to do what God wants from us, and we're going to be strong. Because there's only two ways to live life. You either rise or you sink, and we're not
Mm.
sinking. We are
Mm.
rising. We're Jewish royalty, and royalty stands up straight and high and is proud of who we are.
Wow, that's a lot of strength. Molly, do you have any what's your greatest challenge? Any
What's
challenges
my
that you find?
greatest challenge? What's my greatest challenge? That I don't speak enough. I only speak a few times a week and it's not enough. I feel that
Mm.
my whole life is through what the Rebbe told me. Share your story, because when I speak to people, I see the difference that it makes. People don't go to work. People suddenly are leaving their non-Jewish girlfriend. And I have a role in playing that. That is, who can pay you for this? This is the greatest
Mm.
gift you can have, that you can influence a human being to become more holy. We're a kingdom of priests, and that I
Mm.
should have a role. It is the greatest challenge for me, is that I don't have enough.
Mm. And is that your aspiration for the future, to do more
Only
of
thing
that?
I want to do. I'm not such a
Mhm.
good grandmother. I bring a lot of presents. I do a lot of things, but I'm not a. This is not my forte. My forte is to sell God.
Right. Wow. And you
Can you
do that
sell
so
God?
passionately,
Baruch
so
Hashem, I'm
beautifully.
so blessed. I'm so blessed.
Mrs.
Thank you.
Molly Resnick, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your incredible story and your incredible journey. And thank you for your words of inspiration, that may you keep on inspiring many, many people with your enthusiasm and your passion.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Mrs. Weisberg. You are wonderful.
Wow. What an incredible interview with Mrs. Molly Resnick. I found it fascinating to hear about her journey, how she was this famous producer, meeting the most famous people, the most influential people, smart people, and yet she was so taken in by this friend of hers, this Blumenthal, who just exuded a certain simplicity, but a certain wisdom and naivety and belief. And it was that belief and that strong belief that really touched her to the core. I found that so incredible to see. And it really shows how one person can make such a difference. Once that spark was lit within her, it was, she didn't stop. She hasn't stopped till today. You can see her passion. You can see her fire, the fire in her till today, in how she believes, in how she educates her children, how she leads her life, is really incredible. I also found it really beautiful to see the Rebbe's involvement in her life, and how the Rebbe took such a personal interest in her, even paying for her to travel. I think it was to England, in order for her to give her speech, and how the Rebbe encouraged her to stay on with NBC and to keep on using her qualities and her capabilities in the way that she uniquely could. And it's quite clear that she has her own unique voice, and that certain people are going to be attracted to that unique voice. And the Rebbe was in tune with that, and encouraged people to keep on doing what was their unique mission in life. If you enjoy watching these interviews, I hope you are subscribed to Chabad.org/extraordinary. You can find us as well on YouTube and all podcast platforms. Give us a like there, drop us a comment, tell us what you learned from this interview or any of our interviews. We really love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this extraordinary community.